This is Mac OS Ken.
Apple and Google and an AI rumor. Apple defends its DMA compliance. And a couple of Apple TV Plus stories. It is Tuesday, the 19th of March, 2024. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by Manscaped. Get 20% off plus free shipping with code MacOSKen at manscaped.com. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/MacOSKen. So Bloomberg ran a piece Sunday that I know I missed. Ben Thompson over at Stratechery was kind enough to copy and paste a lot of it. Pulling from that, Apple is in talks to build Google's Gemini artificial intelligence engine into the iPhone, according to people familiar with the situation, setting the stage for a blockbuster agreement that would shake up the AI industry. The two companies are in active negotiations to let Apple license Gemini, Google's set of generative AI models, to power some new features coming to the iPhone software this year, said the people who asked not to be identified because the deliberations are private. Let me start by saying I don't hate this idea. I don't love this idea. At first blush, I find it hard to believe it has anything to do with anything Apple's going to announce anytime soon. Apple CEO Tim Cook said on the 1st of February that Apple was excited to share the details of the company's ongoing work in artificial intelligence later this year. On the 28th of February, Cook told the company's annual shareholders meeting that Apple will break new ground on generative AI this year. Those don't sound like the words of a guy still making deals on features for the next version of iOS. That said, there is a ton about AI that I don't know. The Bloomberg piece goes on to say Apple is preparing new capabilities as part of iOS 18, the next version of the iPhone operating system, based on its own AI models. But those enhancements will be focused on features that operate on its devices rather than ones delivered via the cloud. So Apple is seeking a partner to do the heavy lifting of generative AI, including functions for creating images and writing essays based on simple prompts. I said I neither love nor hate this idea. Right now, to me, it's just an idea. Stratechery's Thompson seems to love the idea. Anyway, he doesn't hate it. Working off the Bloomberg idea, Thompson says, should this deal come to fruition, it would probably be a hybrid. Apple will focus on smaller models that it can run on its devices, ideally with an API that makes certain functionality available to developers. More complicated queries, meanwhile, like text generation, will be sent to the cloud and handled by Google's Gemini. Indeed, this is how Apple's virtual assistant works today. It handles basic queries and hands most of them off to search engines. While Thompson says Apple could do its own cloud-based AI at some point, it may make more sense for Apple to do a deal with Google for AI the way it has for years for search. He doesn't hate the idea. Google shareholders love the idea. At least that's the indication from a CNBC piece. Alphabet shares up 4% on report Apple is in talks to license Gemini AI for iPhones, read the financial site's headline. Was this all about that? Apple shares closed up under 1%, according to the report. Given the blood in the water between big tech and various governments, MarketWatch asks a sensible-sounding question: will an Apple-Google AI partnership get past regulators? I'm happy to say my first thought on that question was supported by an antitrust expert in the piece. The MarketWatch report had Abiel Garcia saying such a tie-up is unlikely to get regulatory scrutiny unless somebody complains about it. The antitrust expert says the FTC and DOJ may ask for information, but depending on how it's structured, Garcia doesn't think it needs regulatory approval. Not everyone agrees, though. If the deal is exclusive, says More Insights and Strategy Chief Analyst Patrick Moorhead, it could be a regulatory issue. For its part, MarketWatch says, at a minimum, Justice Department officials are likely to look into this deal once it is announced. Assuming it is announced. We'll likely know in 3 months or less. Most expect Apple to flesh out its AI plans at this year's Worldwide Developers Conference. That's expected sometime in June. Speaking of regulators, Apple spent yesterday answering to the European Commission. Apple Insider cites a Reuters report that had the Cupertino company participating in a day-long hearing on Monday covering its DMA compliance. There it told regulators, developers, and business users that it has fully complied with the new Digital Markets Act, no matter what developers and business users say. According to the report, Apple lawyer Kyle Deere defended the company, pointing out that it had redesigned its systems specifically to comply with the DMA. Quoting the lawyer, "We are guided first and foremost by ensuring that we've complied with the law, and then second, that we did it in a way that was consistent with our values and consistent with the language we've developed with our users over a very long period of time. And we think we've accomplished that." Stressing a focus on the user perspective, Deere added, "It's not to say that we're not focused on the impact of developers, but I think from our perspective, first and foremost, we'll be tracking very carefully what's the impact of all of these different changes on the user experience that we've delivered to our customers for 15, 16 years through the iPhone." Honestly, it's hard to say how Apple's words played with the commission, or what the point of the hearing even was. Apparently, all of the companies that fall under DMA regulation are being given hearings over how it's going a week and a half to 2 weeks in. According to Reuters, Meta will present its compliance efforts at a separate hearing today, Amazon on Wednesday, Alphabet on Thursday, ByteDance on Friday, and Microsoft next Tuesday. Apple does seem to have addressed one particular concern before the EC's DMA hearing, the potentially chilling effect the €0.5 core technology fee could have on free, viral applications. A piece from Mac Rumors reminds us what that's all about, saying the €0.5 core technology fee that Apple is charging applies to all apps created under Apple's new business terms, both those distributed in the App Store and those distributed outside of the App Store in the European Union. The core technology fee must be paid for every first app install over 1 million installs. But what happens if a free app goes nuts? If somebody making no money on an app sees it downloaded 1 million times due to unexpectedly wild popularity? May sound crazy, but it did happen to a developer quizzing the company on Monday. Mac Rumors says iOS developer Riley Testit, best known for Game Boy Advance emulator GBA4 iOS, asked what Apple would do if a young developer unwittingly racked up millions in fees. He developed that app as a teenager back in 2018 and distributed it outside of the App Store using an enterprise certificate. With about 10 million downloads, under today's DMA rules, he'd have been on the hook for about €5 million, more than enough to bankrupt him. So he asked, would Apple actually expect to collect such a high amount, financially ruining an individual or a family as a result? Saying that Apple wants to encourage kids, parents, and grandparents to keep dreaming and keep building apps to build on those dreams, and Deere had to confess, that part needs some work. When things were all in the App Store, Apple covered the cost. When the DMA demanded mechanisms for distribution outside the App Store, and Deere says Apple had to price each component individually, and so we now have a fee associated with technology, tools, and services. We now have a fee associated with distribution and the services we provide through the App Store, and then we have a separate fee for payment processing if a developer wants to use it. So what about the viral apps making no money? And Deere told developers and regulators, We haven't figured out that solution here. I fully appreciate that. We looked at the data. We didn't see many examples of where you had the viral app or an app just took off that incurred huge costs. That said, I don't care what the data said. We don't care what the data said. We want people to continue to feel and not be scared. Some parents, hey, I've got 4 kids who play around with this stuff. I don't have 5 million euros to pay. This is something we need to figure out, and it's something we're working on. So I would say on that one, stay tuned. More news in a moment, but first a word from today's sponsor, Manscaped. You know, sometimes the grass in the yard gets overgrown before you realize that's happened. The Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra from Manscaped can take care of that. Except we're not talking about the yard. That special area that you and probably few others see below the waist, above the knee. You know what I'm talking about. That area deserves attention. The 5th generation trimmer from Manscaped features 2 interchangeable next-gen skin-safe blade heads, one for trimming, one for going smooth. It's got a dual LED spotlight, which is very helpful. It's waterproof, great for grooming in the shower, and it comes with a classy case. Embrace the season of spring cleaning and join the 10 million people worldwide who trust Manscaped, and do it with this special offer. Go to manscaped.com and use code MacOSKen for 20% off plus free shipping. Can 10 million people be wrong? Yes, but speaking as one of them, they're not wrong this time. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code MacOSKen at manscaped.com. That's MacOSKen, all caps, all one word. Code MacOSKen at manscaped.com. MANSCAPED. Get 20% off and free shipping with code MacOSKen at manscaped.com. The creator of the Apple TV Plus series Pachinko has scored an overall deal with the Cupertino streamer. Variety says Hugh and her Moonslinger Productions have signed a multi-year deal that'll see her create, write, and produce for Apple's film and television side. In addition to Pachinko, Hugh has served as a writer and/or producer on a number of TV series. Among them are the Apple TV Plus Series C, The Terror for AMC, The Killing for AMC, Under the Dome for CBS, and that list goes on. As for her new deal with Apple, Variety has Hugh saying, for the last 6 years, I've been fortunate to call Apple and MediaRes my creative family. Together we dreamed big, and I am thrilled to be able to continue working with so many people I admire and cherish. Now the homecoming is official. It seems likely the next thing we'll see from Hugh is the next part of Pachinko. She was showrunner on 2022's first season of that series. Variety says Season 2 of Pachinko is expected later this year. And finally today, Fraggle Rock Back to the Rock Season 2 is under 2 weeks away. Or we're under 2 weeks from it. Gobo, Red, Boober, Moki, Wembley, and Uncle Traveling Matt are back, joined in Season 2 by guest stars Daveed Diggs, Ariana DeBose, Brett Goldstein, Catherine O'Hara, and others. Apple TV Plus is amping the excitement with a new trailer. You can catch that on YouTube right now. All 13 episodes of the second season hit Apple TV Plus on Friday, the 29th of March. macOSKen, brought to you by me and sponsored by Manscaped. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code macOSKen at manscaped.com. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/MacOSKen. facebook.com/macosken. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media. Online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. Info at macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.